Hello again. In today's video, I would like to address a simple question, and that question is learning a foreign language hard? Is learning a language difficult, or at least is it as difficult as people think it is? Is it as difficult as people make it out to be? And I would like to just jump to the conclusion to start out with and say, no. And maybe many of you have experienced learning a foreign language and you say, well, I tried learning it and it was hard, so it is hard, and that's just your opinion, man. But learning a foreign language isn't hard in the sense that it is a very difficult feat. It is within everyone's capabilities to learn a foreign language. But let me give you an analogy about why people often think that learning a foreign language is difficult. Well, let's start off with an easy task. Imagine I have a big football field and it is filled with leaves, okay? And I say, well, your job is to rake up all of the leaves on this field. You may say, oh my gosh, a whole field, a whole football field of leaves, that would take a long time to rake up. It would take a long time. But is it hard? Is it really that hard to rake? It's not that hard, assuming that you're at least physically fit enough to rake, then it's not hard. You just rake up the leaves and it'll take a while, but it's not inherently difficult, is it? It would just take a lot of time, it would take a lot of effort, but you could do it, okay? But that's assuming that I give you a rake and assuming that there's some container you can put the leaves in after you've raked them up right there on the field so you can do it semi-efficiently, right? But what if I said, actually, no, I don't want to give you a rake and there's no container here on the field. Actually, there's a container at the very top of this stadium, so you have to walk up 100 flights of stairs to get there. And there's a big container that I want you to put the leaves in. But I don't want to give you a rake, I'll give you a toothpick. And with this toothpick, I want you can only get one leaf at a time, and then you have to bring it to the top of the flight of the stairs, and then you have to put the leaf in. Now, it's so easy to rake the leaves up, or I guess you're not raking them now, you're like, whatever you call this action, you're stabbing them with a toothpick and then bringing them to the top, then you have to walk all the way down the stairs and get another leaf. It would take a really long time, right? Now, why am I bringing up this analogy? This analogy is because learning a language is kind of like raking up the leaves. You know, it might be a little bit of an arduous task in the sense that it takes effort. It does take effort, and it does take time. To get all those leaves in the container, it's going to take some time. But is it hard? You can do it. Assuming you're physically able to, you can do it. But many people, when they go to learn a foreign language, they're not using a rake. They're using a toothpick. And they're doing it in a very inefficient way. And if you learn languages like that, then it starts to seem impossible because you spend so much time of it, maybe you've spent years, and you're not even done with a significant amount of clearing the leaves off the field, so to speak, because you've only been equipped with a toothpick. And going back and forth, up and down the stairs here, you've gotten quite exhausted. Particularly when you look at just how little progress you've made, you become completely demotivated. So that is why it is important when you learn a foreign language that you know that you're doing it in an effective way. Because how much progress you make has a significant effect on your attitude and your sense of what your ability is to accomplish this. And that affects your motivation and how likely you are to come back day after day to keep learning. Now, the second thing I want to say in this video is that learning a language takes time. And it takes time. I don't necessarily mean that you have to study for years before you can do anything cool in the language. I would actually say if you've studied your language for a year and you can't already have basic conversations in the language which you find rewarding, then you've been studying the language wrong. I'll just say that one more time. If you've studied the language for a year and you still feel like you can't speak the language at all and have interesting conversations, you have been studying the language wrong. Okay? Learning a language, this is the second big concept, is an accumulative effect. It is an accumulative effect. Your level of proficiency is, again by analogy, is the amount of leaves that you've got into that container, right? And this takes time to accumulate any significant amount. But I find that when people are learning a foreign language, their sense of times is often quite distorted. For example, I heard someone say the other day, he said, "Oh, I spoke a lot of German today." I said, "Oh, you spoke a lot of German today? How long did you speak?" He said, "Oh, I spoke German for 10 straight minutes." 10 straight minutes of German. It sure probably felt a lot like that to this guy who is a lower level German student. And yes, it is a great accomplishment if you can speak a foreign language for 10 minutes. I'm sure the first time you do this, it feels really amazing. I know from personal experience that when I can do that, it feels really amazing. But 10 minutes is a very, very short period of time. I'm not trying to pick on this guy. What I'm saying is that our concept of time, we think that 10 minutes is a long time to spend on something. Do you have any idea how much time that you've spent speaking your native language? Now, if I just give a very conservative estimate, which I did the math before this video, at least I kind of did a ballpark figure. If you assumed, this is a conservative estimate, if you looked at between ages 3 to 10 or 12, I don't remember the exact numbers I put in, but I think from 3 to 10, let's say that every day you got 4-ish hours of quality practice in your native language. It means that by 10 years old, you've had over 10,000 hours in your native language. Over 10,000 hours in your native language. And we're talking about for a 10-year-old. And a 10-year-old you might not think is the most linguistically apt person in the world. They're already fluent at their native language by all standards, but they still probably speak like a 10-year-old, and there's probably many concepts or things that they can't really say properly. Ideas that they can't articulate. Okay? And that's someone who has spent 10,000 hours with the language. Now, so if you speak 10 minutes speaking it, I mean, it's a very short amount of time. I heard also some other people say, "Oh, I read so much in this language. I've read so much in this language. I read 50 pages." 50 pages? Again, not trying to pick on people, but how many pages have you read in your native language? I know even in first grade, people have already read dozens of pages. By the time you graduate elementary school, you've probably read hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of pages in your native language. So we need to remember, of course, we're not necessarily trying to compare foreign language proficiency to native language proficiency. And also I want to bring out that, of course, by the fact that you're an adult, there's already many concepts that you don't need to take time to learn again. You just need to learn the words. So in many senses, you can learn much faster than you did when you were a child. However, what I just want to bring to people's attention is that to get to that high level of a language, it does take accumulated effort. And this accumulation can only happen over time. You cannot rush it. You cannot make this time go faster. You cannot study for 12 hours every day for a week and be fluent at the language. It just is not enough time to accumulate. Even if you did that, it's still very little time in the grand scheme of things. And I'm not trying to discourage anyone. I want to encourage everybody to learn a foreign language and tell you it is in your capabilities. You have the capability of doing it. Anyone can learn a foreign language effectively, but you have to remember you need to use the right tools. You need to be using a rake and not a toothpick. You need to be doing it in an efficient way. You need to have the container right next to the field, not at the top of the stairs. These are just analogies for using effective language learning methodologies. And you need to remember that it really does take a lot of accumulated time and effort, and it's not something that can be rushed. Okay? So these are the things I wanted to talk to you about today. This was all to bring up to the point that learning a foreign language is not hard, as long as you can accept that you need to do it in the right way, and that it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice to accumulate before you get to that level of proficiency that you're shooting for. Thanks for watching this video. Hope to see you again soon.